round of applause.
Thank you so much. I guess I'll show you all my face. This is my face. Hi. Hi, my name is Steph Hansen, and I am 33 years old, living with cystic fibrosis. For those who... Thank you. For those who might not be familiar, cystic fibrosis is a rare, progressive, life-threatening disease that affects about 100,000 people worldwide. Cystic fibrosis is caused by a defective protein that results from mutations in the CFTR gene. This causes an imbalance of salt and fluid in one's cells and results in the formation of thick, sticky mucus that builds up in the lungs, digestive tract, and other parts of the body. It leads to severe respiratory and digestive problems, as well as other complications such as chronic infections and diabetes. What CF looks like for me in my day-to-day life is about 3 to 5 hours a day spent on breathing treatments, as well as cleaning and maintaining my medical equipment. It's about 12 pills a day to help my lungs, sinuses, pancreas, liver, and GI system function as best they can. I've developed several complications because of my CF that require monitoring, like CF-related liver disease, CF-related arthritis, kidney issues, sinusitis, and trouble regulating my blood sugars. So I attend frequent doctor's appointments, not just for with my CF physician, but other specialists as well. Due to my body's inability to absorb nutrients from my food and the fact that my body is constantly fighting off infection in my lungs, I eat on average 3,000 calories a day. I know you wouldn't know it, but really it's not as fun as it sounds, I promise. In my case, due to my chronic infections, I run fevers often and struggle with shortness of breath that leaves even doing the most mundane tasks difficult. The last couple of years, I've started having chronic back pain from my persistent cough. And when I'm no longer able to take care of myself at home, or when I have an exacerbation of my disease, I get admitted to the hospital for 10 to 14 days of aggressive airway clearance treatment and IV antibiotics to help minimize the presence of bacteria in my lungs. I can be up here and list all of these things, but I'll never fully be able to communicate just how much work simply existing with CF really is. It is a full-time job. This experience that I've just described of having CF was once fairly common among most of the CF population. But as some of you know, in October of 2019, the FDA approved the use of the drug Trikafta for the treatment of cystic fibrosis. Now, while most treatments for CF are just treating a symptom, Trikafta is different in that it treats the underlying cause of cystic fibrosis by repairing that defective CFTR protein. Trikafta was initially approved for CF patients who had at least one copy of the most common mutation that causes cystic fibrosis. It's called delta F508. Over the next couple of years, that grew to include many other mutations, and today, 94% of the CF population qualifies for this life-changing treatment. Yeah. I'll never forget the excitement that when I first heard about the release of Trikafta. Though I have to be honest, that excitement was followed by a pretty immediate sense of disappointment, because the mutations that cause my CF are known as rare and nonsense mutations. Therefore, I am part of the 6% of all CF patients who would not qualify for treatment. That is right, I am the rarest of the rare. Honestly though, the months and years that followed the announcement of Trikafta were filled with such joy, for my fellow CF brothers and sisters. Just to give some perspective, and they kind of already did already, but the life expectancy for somebody with CF in 2017, before the release of Trikafta, was roughly 44 years old. And today, largely because of Trikafta, the life expectancy for CFers has jumped to about 53 years old. After the release of Trikafta, there was a major shift in the CF community as a majority of us were given what felt like a second chance at life. I saw my friends who frequented in the hospital, nearing transplant, or struggling on supplemental oxygen experience monumental shifts in their health. I saw people start celebrating getting married, starting families, going back to school, building careers, and even retirement planning for the first time in their lives. Trikafta gave CFers a chance to sit back and collectively take that deep breath of relief, because for the first time, many CFers felt like they finally could. In those same months and years, I silently struggled, knowing that a majority of my friends with CF were experiencing all of the benefits of being on Trikafta while my condition continued to become more complicated to treat. While others were given a new lease on life and were able to celebrate milestones we once thought were unimaginable, I felt like the hits to my own health just kept coming. As time went on, I started feeling more lonely, forgotten, and left behind by the CF community as everybody continued blazing forward. Where I once almost felt a sense of camaraderie in this fight for our lives, after the release of Trikafta, I was seemingly left alone in the trenches to maintain the status quo that I had always known. I recall sitting in a clinic room at my CF center with my doctor at one point, breaking down in tears because I felt so desperate for options and isolated from the community that once gave me such comfort and hope. So, when Terry first reached out to me about getting up here and speaking, my knee-jerk reaction was to say, no, thank you. Because in all honesty, I had separated myself from my community these last few years. Despite having advocated for funding and research for CF all my life, after the release of Trikafta, I had become familiar with a new level of despair. How could I get up here in front of you all and speak about hope and adding tomorrows when I have been just left clinging to today? After years of feeling this way, just last week, the CF Foundation hosted the Cystic Fibrosis Conference in Philadelphia, and there was an entire session on how the foundation is supporting research for treatment of rare and nonsense mutations, just like mine. It left me bursting at the seams with hope and reminded me that while I'm still fighting and waiting for better treatment options, I am not forgotten, and because of this foundation, I'm not alone. You know, it actually reminded me of this quote that I recently heard while watching Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. If you haven't watched it, it's really good. 10 out of 10, I would recommend it. But there's this point in the fantasy series when all hope seems lost for the elves. And King Elrond says, "Hope is never mere, even when it is meager." I'll admit that my sense of hope, as of late, has lacked the quality that it once did. But what I've come to realize is that I can't keep fighting every single day like I do without hope. The story my hope tells me is the opposite of the despair that I've been feeling these last few years. I am not alone, forgotten, or left behind. And what gives me hope is events like this, people like you, and the work that the foundation has done over the last several decades. I was unsure about speaking tonight at first because I didn't want to get vulnerable about my journey with CF these last few years and be honest about the hopelessness I had felt. But what I've learned is that vulnerability is actually me signaling to the world that I need you because I can't do this by myself. So here I am. I'm here asking for your help to raise money this evening so that I might not just have a better quality of life, but ultimately so that I might have more time. More time to be a partner, a daughter, an aunt. I've got 10 nieces and nephews, so many, and a friend to all of my loved ones. More time while I and thousands of others like me hope to see a day when we can gain access to a treatment like Trikafta, or better yet, a cure. Thank you so much for being here.